Let me make one thing absolutely clear from the very beginning. This is not a conspiracy theory. This is not fiction. This is reality knocking louder than ever on Pakistan's doorstep. And while the world keeps scrolling, distracted by football scores and celebrity gossip, something far more sinister is brewing just beneath the surface. And hardly anyone's paying attention. You see, for decades, Pakistan's position in global geopolitics was, for lack of a better word, tolerated, as long as it kept to its region, stayed embroiled in internal challenges, and didn't rattle too many international cages. The West afforded to look the other way. But times have changed. Lines have shifted. The rules of engagement are no longer dictated by bombs alone, but by influence, allegiance, and the power to disrupt narratives. And right now, Pakistan is stepping outside the script, and the so-called guardians of global stability aren't liking it one bit. Now ask yourself, why would Israel, a technologically advanced and militarily dominant state, start casting shadows toward Pakistan? Why now? What's changed? The answer is both stark and chilling. Pakistan is no longer off the radar. Its stance on Palestine unapologetically bold. Its nuclear capability, a real deterrent. Its increasing diplomatic presence in Muslim solidarity movements, an ideological thorn. When a country, especially a Muslim one, starts becoming a symbol of resistance, it becomes a problem. Not because it's invading or conquering or destabilizing, but because it's refusing to bend. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Nations that refuse to bend make others nervous. So what does that mean for Pakistan? It means being scrutinized. It means being surveilled. It means being provoked, not with direct warfare, but with whispers, cyber threats, diplomatic isolation, and strategic alliances formed just beyond its reach. You think it's just coincidence that narratives of Pakistan harboring instability resurface every time it speaks boldly on Gaza or calls out Israeli aggression? You think it's random that think tanks in the West start publishing what if scenarios involving Pakistan's nuclear arsenal the moment it challenges the moral compass of Western foreign policy? Let's not kid ourselves. Pakistan is being recalibrated from the outside, piece by piece, through pressure, through headlines, through silence that screams complicity, and the most dangerous part of it all, the majority of Pakistanis and the wider Muslim world still believe they're observers in this global game. They're not. They are on the board. They are the next move. Israel doesn't need to invade Pakistan to neutralize it. All it needs to do is paint it as the next threat. And once that image takes root, it becomes justification for all kinds of intervention, political, economic, even military. You see, it's not about warheads. It's about narratives. It's about me who gets to write history and who's forced to live through it. That's the real battlefield. Why Pakistan has just entered it due. So the question isn't whether Israel is targeting Pakistan next. The question is, why did you think they weren't already? Let me ask you something. Have you heard a single major Western outlet, just one, confront the growing tension between Israel and Pakistan? Have you seen its broad headlines of the New York Times, debated ferociously on CNN, questioned on the BBC? No. And that, my friends, is not an accident. That is by design. We live in a world saturated with information. News floods our screens 24/7, yet the most pressing stories, the ones with global consequences, are often suspiciously absent from the conversation. You see, it's not just about what they report, it's about what they deliberately don't. And the silence around Israel's creeping aggression and Pakistan's looming role in this geopolitical chessboard is absolutely deafening. Ask yourself, why the silence? Why the avoidance? Why the airy lack of curiosity from the same journalists who dissect conflicts in Ukraine, Gaza, and Taiwan with surgical precision? It's simple. The media isn't just complicit. It's an active player. The public perception of Israel has been masterfully managed for decades. Any challenge to that narrative is either labeled anti-Semitic, radical, or swiftly buried. And when a country like Pakistan dares to speak up for the Palestinians, dares to challenge the global power structure, dares to say enough is enough. The media doesn't attack it directly. It starves it. Silence has become the new censorship. There's no need for overt propaganda anymore. Just selective reporting, filtered truth, and calculated omission. That's the new battleground. You think people don't care. People care deeply, but they're not being shown. They're not being fed distractions, fed celebrity scandals, fed political theatre, while the stage for a broader conflict is being quietly behind the curtain. And those who dare peek behind it, labelled extremists, sidelined, discredited. Pakistan isn't just being ignored, it's being set up. Slowly, strategically. The silence is not because the West doesn't know what's happening. It's because they do, and they need time to frame Pakistan as a potential threat, time to prepare the world to accept whatever comes next. That silence is their preparation, but let's call it what it is here, you complicity. The media, through its refusal to speak truth, is enabling injustice. It is allowing narratives to be hijacked, facts to be rewritten, motives to be misinterpreted. And when the time comes, and make no mistake, they'll suddenly reappear, these journalists, armed with half-truths and manipulated headlines, ready to tell you why intervention was necessary, why Pakistan needed to be monitored, why the threat had to be neutralized. But by then, the damage will have been done. Minds will have been molded. Decisions will have been made. The media's silence is not neutral. While it's a weapon more dangerous than any missile, more destructive than any drone, because it doesn't just kill truth, it buries it. And the most tragic part, people still trust it. They still believe the headlines reflect the full picture. But until we learn to question what we don't see, until we stop mistaking silence for peace, we will remain pawns in a game that was rigged from the very beginning. So here's the real question. How loud does the truth have to be before it finally drowns out the silence? Let me say something bold, because frankly, someone needs to. This isn't just about politics. It's not about borders or arms treaties, or it's about belief. It's about identity. It's about who dares to defy. And right now, Israel sees Pakistan as more than a country. It sees it as a symbol of resistance, of ideology, of unyielding refusal to the line. This isn't a conventional rivalry. It's not Israel versus Iran. It's not about regional disputes over territory. This is personal, not in the emotional sense, but in the ideological sense. Because when a country like Pakistan, armed with nuclear deterrence and unapologetic rhetoric, begins to challenge not just actions but principles, that is what rattles cages. Pakistan just opposes Israel's policies. But it opposes the entire framework that allows those policies to thrive. It challenges the hypocrisy. It exposes the double standards. It refuses to stand by while children in Gaza are reduced to statistics, while mosques are turned to rubble, while Western powers send billions in support and then act shocked when the oppressed fight back. This is what Israel fears, not the missiles, not the army, but the EU mindset. Because you can intercept a missile, you can shoot down a drone, but you can't destroy defiance, not when it's rooted in faith, in history, in collective trauma, and in moral clarity. Pakistan stands tall not just as a military force, but as an ideological barrier, and that's far more threatening to Israel's regional dominance. Because if Pakistan holds its ground, others might follow. If Pakistan continues to support Palestine without compromise, without blinking under pressure, it becomes a beacon. And in a world built on silence and complicity, our beacon is a threat. Let's not pretend this is coincidental. Israel doesn't care if you're thousands of miles away. It cares whether you challenge the illusion of its untouchability. And Pakistan does, not with truth, not with propaganda, but with principles. And that's precisely why the narrative is shifting. Slowly, steadily, you'll start hearing Pakistan being portrayed not as a voice for justice, but as a rogue state, as unstable, as aggressive. This is how it starts. But let's pause for a moment and remember every nation that's ever stood for something bigger than itself has faced vilification. They called Mandela a terrorist. They called Gandhi a rebel. They called Malcolm X a threat until history, that inconvenient thing, proved them right. Pakistan is facing that moment now, a moment that will define its global identity, not as a victim, not as a pawn, but as a principled actor in a morally bankrupt landscape. And yes, that comes with consequences, because when you walk a path of resistance, you don't get applause, you get targeted. And this is what young Pakistanis must understand. This isn't just about politics anymore. This is about you, who you are, what you believe, and whether you're prepared to pay the price for standing firm. Because Israel's concern isn't just that Pakistan might act, it's that Pakistan might inspire, that its conviction might become contagious. So the next time you're told this is all about regional security or defensive posturing, don't buy it. This is about ideology, about control, about a world order that cannot tolerate resistance from the wrong postcode. And Pakistan, whether by design or destiny, has become the nation that won't kneel. Let's strip away the political jargon and the diplomatic platitudes for a moment and confront a truth that most global leaders are far too cowardly to admit. Pakistan is the last line of visible resistance on the global stage. It's the one country that hasn't just spoken about solidarity, it's acted on it. And that in this increasingly cold and complicit world is nothing short of revolutionary. When Gaza is flattened, when children are pulled from rubble in Palestine, when mothers bury their sons' skies filled with foreign-made fighter jets, who stands up in the halls of power and says, enough. It's not the Arab kingdoms with their business ties and foreign investments. It's not the global West with their double standards and selective morality. It's Pakistan. A nation battered, bruised economies, internally divided times, but you still standing, still speaking, still refusing to be silent. Pakistan doesn't raise its voice for Palestine. It carries the weight of an entire global identity on its shoulders. That's the point too many people miss. It isn't political support, it's symbolic. Pakistan has become the conscience of a Muslim world that, in many corners, has been muted by fear or bought by convenience. Jibam and symbols are powerful, especially when they're defiant, especially when they come from a nation that has paid the price, economically, diplomatically, sometimes even militarily, for choosing principle over profit. That's why Pakistan is being watched so closely. That's why it's being quietly isolated, not because of what it's done, but because of what it represents, usually the idea that you don't need to be a superpower to have a spine. Let's be brutally honest, G. Most of the Muslim world has been tamed, controlled through oil, silenced through aid, bought through diplomacy. And when Palestine bleeds, statements are released, flags are raised, and that's about it. But Pakistan, for all its internal challenges, who continues to say what the rest are too afraid to whisper. And that's precisely why it's becoming a target, because in this global system, moral clarity is dangerous. A nation that speaks in absolutes about human rights, about justice, about the right of the oppressed to resist becomes a disruption, especially when it has the military capability to back its convictions. Pakistan isn't being seen as aggressive. It's being seen as uncontrollable. And that is infinitely more threatening to Israel's strategic objectives. This is not about whether Pakistan will go to war. It's about whether Pakistan will remain the one country unwilling to kneel, in speech, in policy, in principle. Because once that light goes out, the message to the Muslim world's clear: if Pakistan couldn't withstand the pressure, what hope do the others have? So understand this. The focus on Pakistan isn't just about nukes or borders. It's about eliminating the last nation that still holds a mirror up to Western hypocrisy and says, economies. You don't get to bomb innocents and call it defense. You don't get to murder children and call it strategy. You don't get to justify the unjust. Not on our watch. And when you stand for something that's pure, that unwavering, you're not just a threat to policy, you're a threat to an entire system built on silence and submission. That's what Pakistan is up against, and that's exactly why it must not break. Let me ask you a question that cuts through all the noise. What happens when a nation refuses to be bullied? What happens when a country, despite sanctions, propaganda, and global pressure, refuses to fold, refuses to compromise its values, and refuses to stay silent in the face of injustice? The answer is this. They start rewriting the playbook, and suddenly they become enemy number one. That's exactly what's happening with Pakistan. Let's not pretend otherwise. This isn't about Pakistan's economy. It's not about internal instability. It's not even about, not really. It's about independence, and more specifically, obvious strategic independence. The very idea that a nuclear-armed Muslim country could chart its own path without needing American approval, Israeli blessing, or Western aid. You are terrified of those who've spent decades designing a world order where submission is the only option. And now here comes Pakistan, loud, defiant, refusing to play the victim, refusing to surrender its principles for trade deals, refusing to label Palestinian resistance, terrorism, to accept that silence is the price of diplomacy, refusing to kneel. That's the real problem. That's the reason why the corridors of Tel Aviv, Washington, and Brussels are suddenly whispering about Pakistan with growing suspicion. They don't fear the missile, they fear the mindset. Because when one nation decides to live on its feet rather than die on its knees, others start waking up too. It's not just about national pride, it's a contagion of courage. Let's look at strategically. Israel is built on deterrence, on dominating the narrative, on ensuring that no regional power ever gets strong enough, politically or ideologically, to challenge its authority. And what's the one nation that has both the population, the principle, and the potential military strength to disrupt that equation? Pakistan. Not because it wants war, but because it wants sovereignty. That's what the West can't understand. They're used to nations negotiating from weakness. But Pakistan, despite all its internal struggles, despite its political chaos, still holds as something far more threatening than wealth or influence. It holds onto conviction. And you see, conviction can't be sanctioned. It can't be invaded. It can't be overthrown in a coup or replaced with a puppet regime. It's born from faith, from sacrifice, from legacy. Pakistanis didn't inherit freedom for free. they fought for it. And they remember what it cost them. That memory is now embedded in their national DNA. So when Pakistan challenged Israel's occupation of Palestine, when it raises its voice for the voiceless, when it says, this is wrong, it isn't doing it for applause. It's doing it because it knows what it's like to be dismissed, to be demonized, to be doubted. And make no mistake, that makes it dangerous. Because now you have a nation that doesn't just possess power, it understands pain, that combination. It scares those in charge of maintaining the global status quo. So they'll call Pakistan a problem, a destabilizer, an unpredictable actor. But what they're really saying is this, Pakistan won't bend. And we don't know what to do with that. The question now isn't whether Israel is targeting Pakistan with missiles or aircraft. It's whether it's already launched something more insidious, a campaign to paint Pakistan as a threat, to isolate it, to shame it into silence. Because that's what you do when you can't defeat an enemy militarily. You try to destroy their reputation first. But here's the catch. You can't shame a nation that already walks with its head held high. You can't silence a people whose entire history a testament to survival. And you certainly can't intimidate a country that knows exactly what it stands for. Let me make something absolutely clear. When nations go quiet, when they lower their gaze and accept the narrative crafted for them, that's when the real danger begins. That's when oppression thrives. That's when lies win. But Pakistan, for all the flaws the world is quick to highlight, hasn't gone quiet. And that, in today's world, is revolutionary. You see, the game has changed. Modern warfare is no longer just fought with tanks and bombs. It's fought through headlines, boardrooms, disinformation, and deals inked behind closed doors. And this new front, this new war, has one clear objective: to neutralize dissent before it ever becomes a threat, not with bullets, but with branding. And Israel, with the help of its global allies, has become masterful at this. The real battle is no longer on the battlefield. It's in perception. It's in making the world believe that any country that challenges Israel's dominance, even diplomatically, even rhetorically, must be radical, untrustworthy, dangerous. It's a psychological operation. And right now, the crosshairs are inching ever closer to Pakistan. Why? Because Pakistan represents something no one saw coming, unfiltered resistance without dependency. It doesn't need to be told who the aggressor is. It doesn't ask permission to call out genocide. It doesn't sit at the international table seeking approval like a beggar looking for scraps. It speaks. And it means it. And that terrifies the architects of this new global silence. Pakistan isn't just a thorn in Israel's side. Yeah, it's a mirror reflecting the hypocrisy of the so-called civilized world, a mirror reminding the international community of the blood it chooses not to see. A mirror that says, if speaking up makes us the villain, so be it. Now let me ask you, Gol, when was the last time a Muslim country spoke like that on the world stage? Without fear, without filters, without the usual carefully worded statements that say nothing and do even less. This is why Israel's gaze has shifted. Not because Pakistan has attacked, not because it has crossed any borders, but because it refuses to fit the mold. It refuses to sit quietly while others profit from silence. And here's the frightening reality. However, that defiance alone is enough to put a target on your back. That's the world we're living in now, where being morally upright, where refusing to be complicit, where choosing humanity over politics makes you dangerous. Let's be honest, they've tried everything else. Economic pressure, diplomatic isolation, media manipulation. But Pakistan didn't blink. And so now the world is being prepared slowly, methodically, to accept the next staging, labeling Pakistan not just as problematic, but as a potential aggressor. Watch the rhetoric shift. Watch headlines subtly evolve. It's already begun. And what does that tell you? It tells you that this isn't about Israel being threatened by physical warfare. It's about being threatened by a moral influence, by the possibility that one nation's integrity might ignite another's, and then another, until the illusion of untouchability is shattered forever. So this is not just a conflict of interests. It's a clash of legacies. And make no mistake, Pakistan's voice today will define its place in tomorrow's history, whether it's cast as a rogue state or remembered as the last nation that dared to stand for something real. That choice is unfolding now. And to those watching this unfold from a distance, remember the world doesn't fall apart when people do evil. It falls apart when people stay silent. Pakistan has chosen not to be silent. The question is, who will stand with them when the storm really begins?